if JJ Dunnigan is in a state championship, you don't think there are Kansas fans that might want to go and watch him play, whether it's at Manhattan or in Lawrence? If a Lincoln Cure had made a championship over his run, you don't think K-State fans would have flocked? Or when Avery Johnson played Mill Valley, that the casual fan wouldn't have gone and said, I'll go to Manhattan for that. I'll buy a hotel room for that and hang out in Manhattan or Lawrence for a weekend. I think it can be done. It just needs to be really thought out.
Hello and welcome to the Verbal Commitment Podcast on the Kansas City Sports Network. I'm Kevin Flaherty. I'm here as always with my good friend Ryan Wallace, and we're talking about the world of local recruiting from Kansas and Kansas City prospects to the college classes at Kansas, Kansas State, and Missouri. We have interviews with a pair of Derby offensive linemen who rank among the top players in their respective classes. We'll also talk about Kansas coach Lance Leipold's comments about a potential state title game format and look at some local players who earned mention on Bruce Feldman's annual Freaks list. As always, if you like what you're hearing, comment below, tell your friends about us, subscribe, hit that like button, or leave us a review, a 5-star ranking, wherever you get your podcasts like Apple or Spotify. We have our own specific audio channel through KCSN on Apple or Spotify, so you can seek us out there. Once again, we appreciate you guys helping us grow and getting us in front of more people like you. We didn't have any players commit to play at Kansas, Kansas State, or Missouri. Third straight week, Ryan. When somebody does commit, you can expect to find our analysis of that commitment right here on the show. And if you're new to the show, you can go back to prior episodes around when those guys committed and hear our thoughts on those guys. So give those a look. So with that said, Ryan, let's go ahead and get into our Tacos for Life Player of the Week. Tacos for Life has a wide variety of options to choose from in their scratch kitchen in locations in 8 states, including right here in the Kansas City metro on both the Kansas side in Overland Park and on the Missouri side in Blue Springs. And for every taco, rice bowl, salad, quesadilla, or nachos that you enjoy, a meal is donated to Feed My Starving Children on a meal-for-meal basis. Those meals are then shipped out to more than 90 countries to feeding centers, care points, orphanages, schools, and refugee camps. It's a great cause, and you can help just by doing what we all know and love, chowing down on some great tacos. Every week, we'll pick a Tacos for Life Player of the Week, and this week, Ryan, we picked St. Thomas Aquinas standout Stephen Carroll. Stephen had a strong year last year. You know, you and I were talking about him. He was an early member on our spreadsheet that we have of the top players. But, Ryan, everything that we've seen and heard this offseason is that he's somebody that could be in for an even bigger senior year.
Yeah, he was tremendous at the K-State offensive line, defensive line elite camp that I was at the beginning of the summer. And he was tremendous, Kevin, as a defensive tackle, which is an area that, you know, he has. I think when he's been used, it's been sparing at Aquinas. And even then, I mean, it's, you know, as needed, which is last year it was few and far between, right? But
they've got Zion Thornton for this,
right? They just don't need
other guys.
But I was intrigued there because look, he's going to play offensive line at the next level. But I was encouraged because it goes to show you, I think, how athletic he can be at times, just in how much burst he has coming off of the line of scrimmage. But also you got to see the wrestling background, specifically when he was on defense, because you get to see a little bit more of him understanding, you know, how to work over an offensive lineman, which is something that doesn't happen to him when he's on that side of the ball. Let me just put it this way, Kevin, like Randy Dreiling he loves his players, right? But he's a tough coach. Yes. And I can remember last year, Stephen Carroll getting kind of an Dreiling like level of kudos, right? At times for Stephen Carroll. And so you knew that there was something about this kid that he really liked. And then you and I get to Rockhurst and watch Aquinas beat up on the Hawklets, and you understand why. I mean, he's a guy that he's very passionate in the way that he carries out of his blocks. He's a guy that like wants to be the lead blocker. He's a guy that I just think the offense completely rallies around. And here's the other thing is I think technically and fundamentally, he's really, really sound. So
Yeah.
you combine the technique with kind of this aggression, this like mean streak that he plays with to finish blocks through the whistle, sometimes past the whistle. And you get the makings of the type of lineman that you and I absolutely adore.
Yeah.
I know that from a college standpoint, people are looking at the size maybe and the lack of length more than anything as, maybe a reason why he ends up at a Central Arkansas. No disrespect to Central Arkansas. But I'm also just going to lay it out there, Kevin, and I'm curious your thoughts here. If we're just talking about in a vacuum, you and I get to pick an offensive lineman to go to, say, this made up offensive line camp or clinic. And the goal is for you and I to pick an offensive lineman that we think is going to win. In other words, former offensive linemen like the technique, they like how strong they are, like all these things. I don't know if Stephen Carroll wouldn't be the guy that I would pick to win the damn thing, even if as a prospect, he's maybe not the most highly regarded. Because again, I just think he is the most well-rounded offensive lineman on the Kansas side in this 2026 class. I don't care what the measurements are.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's a difference, and people need to realize that there's a difference between quote unquote best prospect and best player. And if you're sitting here saying, hey, who is the best offensive lineman in Kansas for high school X, that you're starting this season, Stephen Carroll's going to be in that discussion. Max Robinson's probably going to be in that discussion as a really good prospect. Bailey Johnson might wind up being in that discussion from Lawrence High. But at the same time, Ryan, I think that, like you said, there are a few things, like as a prospect, mainly just his height, really, that keeps him from maybe being that quote unquote KUK State guy. But we have seen guys with similar frames to Stephen Carroll go to places like Central Arkansas, dominate, and then wind up at the Power 4 level and really succeeding on down the line.
Well, and I mean, I feel like I use this name quite a lot, but I think in this instance it makes a lot of sense. And granted, he has not seen the field at like a K-State yet to this point, at least in more than just kind of a late game. I hate to call it mop up duty role, but you understand. Michael Capria at Kansas State that used to play at Liberty has basically the same build as Stephen Carroll. K-State loved the power that he played with. Love, again, a wrestling background, which actually probably might be comparable, if not a hair behind where Stephen Carroll's wrestling background is. And the fact that he comes from a wrestling family too. But you watched Michael at Liberty and you just knew like there's something about this kid that even though he's only 6', 6'1", like he can hang. And he's gotten up to K-State and has challenged for the backup role since the moment he got there. So even though he's not starting, I mean, he's more than carrying his own. He's not a guy that K-State's trying to cut. Again, all that to say, I think Stephen Carroll is going to be able to punch above his weight class. And if he ends up doing that at Central Arkansas, and if he decides to hit the portal, I think he can and will be a coveted player down the road.
Without further ado, here is our Tacos for Life Metro Player of the Week, Stephen Carroll. Stephen, welcome to the show.
Hi, how are you guys?
Doing well.
Doing good.
Well. Stephen, you announced your decision in June to commit to Central Arkansas. What do you like about the Bears? What stood out about them to you, like sort of through the process?
Yeah, so they were my first offer, right? And I didn't have an offer from a D2, not even an NAIA or anything. And they're my first offer. It really stood out to me. And I have a buddy I used to play football with back in middle school. He committed there. I love the campus. I love the players. I love the coaches. The coaches have been there for a really long time, so I know not a lot of changes are going to happen there with the coaching staff. And they tend to recruit high schoolers, which I really like because you don't get that nowadays. And I just really like what they stand for, and they hold their values really well.
Stephen, I wanted to ask you about the family, right? Being at home, you've got Sean, who's wrestling at Northern Illinois. Danny was a football player at North Dakota. Tommy was a tight end at Aquinas that was damn good himself. How much did kind of being amongst those siblings prepare you to be kind of the nasty physical mauler that we see, in football each fall?
You know, that's really good. Uh, we all wrestled each other. We kind of built each other up by just beating each other up. uh, but it was a very competitive atmosphere growing up. We competed. We'll play football in the backyard and turns into a fist fight. Gets you really competitive. And my dad was like a coach for almost all of our teams, and he was running around game to game watching us. Sean, so funny enough, we started wrestling to get better for football. My brother Sean ended up wrestling at NIU. So
You know, on tape, you mentioned the wrestling background. You're one of the top wrestlers in the state of Kansas. You see that on tape, especially with the way that you finish blocks and really kind of torque guys to the ground to finish them off. How much does your wrestling background help you out when you get out there between the lines in football?
a massive amount. Like I don't it's all knowing how to use your body. I feel like with wrestling it's like a lot of like hip movement, all that, and I feel like I can get really low and use my leverage on them. And wrestling definitely has made me a 10 times better football player.
Is there an area of your game, Stephen, going into your senior year that you feel like was a focus for you this off season? An area that when we watch you again senior year, it'll be, oh wow, he really took some time this off season to improve in this area.
Um I mean, I would say pass blocking, but overall not. I've been working a little bit off season on my pass block to get ready for college. Uh, but I feel like I have pretty well pass block in the end games when we do. I think finishing my block straight over the top and not trying to use my hips like, throw them or
Yeah.
something.
As somebody who, do you enjoy run blocking though? I mean, obviously you get to do it a bunch.
I enjoy it a lot because like you're gonna know the first play if you're gonna have 50 pancakes or none. If you dominate that first guy, then it's gonna be an easy, fun game. And for the most part, it's felt like that. Not to be like cocky, but it's yeah. I enjoy run blocking because I picked up the offense pretty well, and it's just the better man, stronger man wins.
What's it like, playing under a legend like Coach Stryling, and how well do you feel like he has prepared you for the next level?
I have loved playing for Coach Dryling. I love his coaching the way he is. It's tough love, and it's my style of coaching. I feel like he's developed us pretty good for the harder parts of college. We run 40/40s. We work out, run 40/40s. Then when we were allowed to have practice, have walkthrough practices. Um, it, he's got me prepared really well for college.
One of the things that we talked about a little earlier on this episode is you had a really big junior year. You guys win state title, but everything we've heard is you've had a massive offseason, that you've really shown up on the camp circuit. Where do you think that you've taken a big jump, and how much, I guess, where are you better than you were a year ago?
I would say mentally, I'm mentally way better than I was my junior year. I've taken it 10 times more serious since I've taken it way more serious knowing that I am going to the next level, and I feel like I have a really great connection with this team, and we have such an amazing opportunity to win 3 times state championship. So yeah.
I was going to ask one more thing here, Stephen, Aquinas year to year is going to have a target on their back no matter what, right? But especially when you're in a season like this where you're coming off another state title, when you think about the captains like you and Cal and some of these younger guys, what is it about this locker room that you feel like is prepared to wear that target proudly? I mean, you feel like this is a team that kind of is going to embrace that this fall?
Yeah. So what I think the big thing is, we don't really back down. Like our coach Rampy says, "Come get some." He always says it. He goes, "We have someone on our back at all times. We have the biggest target on our back in Kansas in 5A," and he just says, "Come get some." So, yeah.
I love that.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, Steven, as our player of the week, we'll be sending you and all of our future Tacos for Life Metro Player of the Week picks a gift card to enjoy the food over at Tacos for Life.
Awesome. Can't wait.
Awesome. Well, we thank you so much for stopping by, and we'll be right back after this.
Please.
Looking for tickets for your next event? Tickets for Less is your #1 source. Save big on every purchase when you use promo code KCSN at ticketsforless.com.
I'm BJ Kissel, founder and CEO of KC Sports Network. Emprise Bank has been with us from the beginning. They were our first network partner, and they believed in the vision of what we were building from the start. I can't speak to any other banks or companies and how they operate, but I can tell you from personal experience and based on the growth of the network you're listening to right now, that if you have banking needs, call our friends at Emprise Bank. We've worked with so many great people there over the years, from Vicky and Aggie to Andrea, Lori, Jackie, Deb, and Aaron, and not to mention so many others that not just supported KC Sports Network, but supported our KCSN Foundation as well. But the best thing that I know is that if I have a question or a problem, no matter how dumb the question is, I know who I'm going to call and who I'm going to talk to, and I know that I'm getting an answer from someone that I can trust, and I know that person is there to help us. That's why Emprise Bank has always been and continues to be our partner in Possible, and they can be yours too. You just have to reach out. If you have a banking need, whether it's business or personal, hit me up. I will connect you directly with the same people that have helped us build KCSN, and that's our friends at Emprise Bank.
Folks, nothing beats hanging out with the boys on a hot summer day and watching some baseball. And the simplest way that you all can get in on the action is to download the Pick 6 app from DraftKings. It is crazy simple. Just pick more or less on the stats for 2 or more of your favorite players, and boom, you're in the mix for big cash prizes. And the best part is, Pick 6 is available right here in Missouri. Don't miss out on the fun. Don't settle for a smaller payout. Switch to Pick 6, and right now, new customers can get $25 in bonus picks with their first deposit of $5. Here's what you got to do. Download the DraftKings Pick 6 app now and then use code KCSN. That's code KCSN for new customers to get $25 in bonus picks with their first deposit of $5. Better payouts, bigger wins, only with Pick 6 from DraftKings. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Must be 18 plus. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Void where prohibited. New customers only. Minimum $5 deposit. Bonus picks expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see pick6.draftkings.com/promos.
Welcome back to the Verbal Commitment Podcast. I had a chance to ask Lance Leipold about his idea to honor the most recent Kansas high school state champions in the new booth, and in his answer, he revealed an interesting nugget about wanting to potentially host future state title games. Take a look. You guys showed on social media the area with the helmets for all the high school state champions. I know that was your idea specifically. How did you come up with that, and why was that important to you?
Well, I guess part of the idea was when I was coaching at Wisconsin Whitewater, at Lambeau Field, they have a big atrium area that the Coaches Association is in the state of Wisconsin is a very strong organization. They've given a lot of recognition for different things in that area, and they kind of made it multi-use. I thought we could kind of copy that in some form, and really, again, as we talked about since our arrival, that recruiting the state and recognizing the efforts of the high school programs, the high school coaches, and all those things were going to be important to us. And I thought it was a way that we could try to recognize them in the stadium. I think ultimately, nothing against anything in the past or anything, but hoping that when the stadium is complete, that the possibility of state championships and things being played here is something I've talked with Coach Kleiman at K-State about, even tossing the idea of alternating.
That was Kansas coach Lance Leipold. Ryan, I'm not going to lie. My phone in DMs blew up a little bit after Leipold's comments about talking with Kansas State coach Chris Kleiman about Kansas and Kansas State potentially rotating his state title game host. And I know you and I talked about it pretty quickly as soon as we got out of that press conference.
Yeah, that took a turn. That was like not where you were expecting, I think, the answer to go, but we're very happy that Coach Leipold took it that way. Yeah, let's just kind of go back and forth here a little bit about this, Kevin, because you and I have talked a lot about it. We've both reached out to coaches in Kansas trying to get their thoughts on it. I was reaching out to former players that have played in Kansas back when it was at Memorial Stadium at KU. I talked to coaches on the Missouri side. Here's what's interesting, Kevin, is if we're talking about the future of potentially going to a one site, right, championship for all classes, I started digging into this, and it actually wouldn't be like Kansas is on the forward trend here. In fact, of the neighboring states, Colorado right now is the only other neighboring state that chooses to do pretty much what Kansas is doing right now, which is dividing. They do a 6-man to 2A in Pueblo, and they do 3A to 5A in Fort Collins at Colorado State. But everybody else, Nebraska, Missouri, Iowa, Oklahoma, Arkansas, they are all one-site states when it comes to football championships. So let's just start there, Kevin. First off, like, just without getting into the weeds on it, your first reaction to everybody being at one site was thumbs up or thumbs down?
Yeah, it's interesting because I think the impression that I got from talking to different coaches was basically there's a split in the state between coaches who want to have several sites, coaches who want to have it at one site, and the coaches who preferred it at several sites felt like in a model where the one site was either KU or K-State. And, Lance Leipold, you just saw, said, hey, maybe the school that doesn't host that year's Sunflower Showdown can host the state title games. They felt like that might be enough to get enough converts in to go to the one-site model. I was down in Texas, obviously, for a few years, covered the state championships at Jerry World. I know one of the worries that some coaches have is if you put it in Manhattan or if you put it in Lawrence, you're not going to draw a big enough crowd to fill out those stadiums. And I talked to a Texas high school coach, big class coach, had been to the state title game. His feeling was that in Texas, 30 to 50% of the fans who were there for their state title game were neutrals, not attached to either school. And I think that's one of the challenges in Kansas is I don't think you're going to draw that big of a crowd from neutral people who just say, man, I'd really like to watch Aquinas Hayes play when they aren't attached to either Aquinas or Hayes. And so I do see some of the question marks with it. Obviously, as media members, Ryan, we've covered the multi-state model. In Texas, I covered the one-state model. So much more convenient, basically, being in one place, being able to cover all of those different games and not having to choose, which is something that, I'll be honest, is a little bit heartbreaking for us sometimes because we want to see multiple games and we have to choose, okay, this state title game versus that state title game.
Yeah. So getting into a little bit of some of the conversations that at least I had on my side, a couple things to note and things that people can chew on a little bit. If you go to the one site model and it is at a stadium, let's start with what you were talking about with the size of the stadiums, right? Yeah. That was a big thing that I think some of the coaches that I talked to brought up is some of their most fond championship memories were played at like smaller venues. I reached out to a former colleague of you and I's, both that has covered state championships in Iowa, another that's covered state championships in Nebraska and Oklahoma. They both said that it was the smaller venues. In fact, the former colleague of ours from Oklahoma, when I talked to him, they currently do theirs at UCO, which is like 10 to 12,000, I think is the stadium there. But he said, bar none, the best atmosphere that he witnessed was, I believe it might have been the year after COVID or the COVID year. And they played the state championship out of Owasso High School. And Owasso was not in it, but it was an Oklahoma high school venue. So it was substantially bigger than what we find here, but still it was more raucous. So if you have a one site model as you said, the likelihood of you filling it to get that kind of state energy probably isn't going to happen. The cheerleaders and parents and boosters and stuff aren't going to be able to hang stuff around the chain link fences maybe on the way in, because you're sharing it with 6 other classifications. So there's that. But then you also talk to some players, and I talked to some former players that played. I went to Blue Valley High School, and Blue Valley won the state championship in 2004. I was there at Memorial Stadium in Lawrence. And I said, do you guys remember like having a problem with maybe the lack of energy? And both the players were like, no, I remember the game. And outside of the moments of the game and outside of the moments of winning, it was just cool to be on the field. That was our Super Bowl. And you would have thought we were in Jerry World. You know what I mean? So I think playing at a KU or K-State has some merit for the players, especially in today's day and age, Kevin, where, let's be honest, a lot of the people that are the players that are going to play in these games nowadays, you might have single digits that will inevitably step foot on those 2 fields again, either as a member of KU or K-State, or as again at a level high enough where you would then be an opponent of KU or K-State's. And so I think there's a draw from that standpoint. But the other side of it is the strategy, Kevin, and the logistics of it. I talked to a coach who has on the Missouri side, and I'll just put it this way. He has been a participant in a state title in Missouri when it was in the Dome, when it was in Jeff City, which was the COVID year, or I guess they did it 2 years maybe down there, and then in Columbia when they've done it at Missouri. This year, it will begin its new future home at Missouri Western up in St. Joe. But he said, and I thought it was very telling and something that I hadn't thought about. He said, whether it's at KU, K-State, Emporia State, Pitt State, wherever you want to put it, if there is a one-site host, make sure that host is embracing their duty as a host.
Sure.
And trying to make the best of it for all classes. I know one of the things that was bothersome in Columbia for some of the smaller schools is they didn't get to use the Missouri locker room. They were hiking from other parts of the campus in makeshift locker rooms, while, maybe a Liberty North or a CBC was in the big locker room, because again, logistically, you don't have enough time, even if you're having 3 games a day spread over 2 days, to flip a locker room that fast. You don't want to rush guys off the field when they're celebrating a victory. You don't want to ruin maybe a prayer circle or parents that want to have their pictures taken at midfield. So there's a lot of strategy and stuff that's going to be involved. But again, if KU and K-State are going to embrace it and find a way to make it work, and know that it's about the players and the communities more than it is about necessarily their facility or the TV guys getting their broadcast like in a particular time frame or whatever, then I think it can work. But the logistics behind it will need some ironing out for sure.
Yeah, one of the logistical points in favor is the thought that if you're going to have it at one site, Lawrence and Manhattan have the hotel rooms, and that was something that was brought up sort of in favor of it. I'm glad you brought up the community aspect of it, because that was something that was often brought up in favor of the several site model. Just sort of, hey, our town can roll into Hutchinson or Pittsburgh and take it over, and it can be about our town and our moment and all of those different things. In being in the state title game, you go into Lawrence or Manhattan, it's not really going to be the same way. And if you're having multiple games on the same day, fans, a lot of times they'll tailgate out there and things like that. Well, now if there are fans and you have, say, like a day pass or something where you can buy a ticket that gets you in all day, and you're the 6A game, are your fans hurrying to get into the stadium because they want good seats that maybe aren't going to be there? There are some issues and things that certainly do need to get sort of ironed out in order for this to work. It is the one thing I will say, Ryan, I gave Keisha a call to talk to them about it. They haven't talked to Kansas about this, and haven't talked to Kansas. I think since like really the plans for the new booth were put into
Mm.
motion. So this is something that is still very early on in the process, but I wouldn't expect this to be the last time that we talk about it. And the fact that multiple high school coaches who were even against sort of the one site model were saying, if KU and K-State want to take this thing over, that's going to sway some votes, and that will get the majority of votes from the coaching side of it. I think this is something that could very well happen. The one thing I did want to add real quick is right now they have that, they're kind of in between, where it's not really a lot of sites, it's 3 sites. Coaches pretty unanimously seem to dislike the current model.
It shocks me.
They did not like that because they feel like you get a lot of the negatives from a one-site model, but none of the positives of a one-site model, and a lot of the negatives of a multi-site model, but none of the positives of a multi-site model. And so I thought that was kind of interesting.
That surprised me because I feel like you get a little bit of everything with that model, but you know, again, to each their own. I'll just finish by saying this. I put a poll out on X when this came out, and I had looking for crowdsourcing of if you were just an interested high school, interested in the scene whatsoever on any level, whether you're a diehard or like you said, maybe it's I'd go out and watch that game. So I had option A was the one host site shared over 2 days by all classifications, and it's going to be at the state's largest stadiums. Option B was basically these 3 host sites like we have now, but it's going to be in kind of the medium, the Emporia State size stadiums, the Pitt States, the Washburns. Or option C, you go back to what we used to know and everyone dreaded, at least other than maybe some coaches out there, which was every class had its own site on the same day, spread out throughout the state. Option A was a 56.6% winner. Option B, 34%, only 9% for the spread out view. This was over 99 votes. So again, take that for whatever it's worth. I'm a fan of it, and I'll just finish by saying this, Kevin. I think it'd be great for the state of Kansas's brand of the brand of Kansas high school football to at least explore the idea of one site, because I do think it might open the doors for the folks that we think might be on the fence about going. If JJ Dunnigan is in a state championship, you don't think there are Kansas fans that might want to go and watch him play, whether it's at Manhattan or in Lawrence? If a Lincoln Cure had made a championship over his run, you don't think K-State fans would have flocked? Or when Avery Johnson played Mill Valley, that the casual fan wouldn't have gone and said, I'll go to Manhattan for that. I'll buy a hotel room for that and hang out in Manhattan or Lawrence for a weekend. I think it can be done. It just needs to be really thought out. And again, Kevin, I'll finish by saying this. The blessing of this, at least for most of us, not the coaches that you were talking about that hate it, worst case scenario, you try the one site thing, it crashes and burns. We're still better off right now than we were with every class having its own site. We can always go back to how it is now. I'm intrigued to explore this, Kevin.
Yeah, I really like the idea of one site, and especially at KU K-State, in part because of a lot of the reasons you mentioned. But the other part is, Ryan, we talk to kids across the state, and so many of them grow up being Kansas State or Kansas fans. And so many of them are never going to get the chance to play at Kansas or Kansas State. And I can't imagine somebody in their senior year finally getting that run, getting to go to the state title game. You've grown up your whole life, you're a K-State fan, you get to play in Manhattan, or you've grown up your whole life and you're a Kansas fan, you get to play in Lawrence, or even if you play in the rival stadium, to get to play in that stadium, even if it's not full, I think is the sort of thing that people remember for the rest of their lives, and has a chance to really be a foundational thing. And that's before you even get into the recruiting aspect of, hey, it's not so bad for KU and K-State to get a whole bunch of high school kids out to their campuses and out on those fields and getting to show off their programs.
100%.
It's early days. It should make a fun discussion point moving forward. Again, I'm sure this won't be the last time we talk about this. But let's go ahead and move on. It's that time of year where in the midst of your favorite college football teams heating up at camp, the Athletics' Bruce Feldman stokes those fires a little bit with his annual release of his college football freaks list. In Kansas City, extremely well represented. North Kansas City's Dominique Orange, now a star defensive tackle at Iowa State, comes in at number 25. Just 2 spots below him is one of the freakiest players you and I have seen in Aquinas product, Jaden Roberts, now at Alabama. We talked about him last year because he made last year's list too. Florida true freshman Jaden Woods came in at number 40, something we could have predicted when he was balling out at Mill Valley. And former Rockhurst star John Michael Gillenborg made the list at number 54. He's an all-Mountain West tight end at Wyoming. I also wanted to mention Richmond's Keyshawn Elliott also earned a shout-out for his athleticism when Feldman was praising his Arizona State teammate Clayton Smith. So almost like a fifth member. I know Richmond's very much on like the edge of Kansas City out there, but Keyshawn was a guy that we enjoyed watching as a high schooler, and congrats to him as well. But Ryan, I don't think any of these players came as surprises to us.
Not really. I mean, even you go back, I tried to find old high school photos of those guys. John Mike with the with the cornrows, man.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, shocker. Like, that's why we have this show, is because you and I are firm believers that there are some freaky athletes that are really good football players in this area. Credit to Bruce Feldman for getting some of them, not all of them. If you're wondering, I'll just let's peel back the curtain here a little bit. If you're wondering why there's no K-State players on this list, because you would think Lincoln Cure athletically would make it. You would think Avery Johnson athletically would make it. VJ Payne is arguably the fastest player, at least pound for pound. Dylan Edwards, sure. So anyway, if you're wondering why none of those guys showed up, it's because Bruce Feldman didn't email Kansas State. But I will carry on and move forward with these 4 that did get picked. If I had to highlight one of them, I mean, we've talked about Jaden Woods before. Like, that one didn't necessarily surprise me as much. I'm going to talk for just a quick second about Dominique Orange and the ascent that his career has taken. I honestly didn't ever look at him as a freaky athlete per se, but he was the type of player you knew that if he got to the right spot and somebody could tap in, that he could get back to that kind of freshman year at North Kansas City Dominique Orange that like just blew up on the scene. And credit to him, because you go through Feldman's write-up and like the weight room numbers for Dominique are astounding, and he's got a vert to boot. Like, he's really put in the time and the effort to get himself to where he is. So it was awesome to see him crack the top 25 of this list.
Yeah, I agree. Also, I kind of have to laugh when I was looking at Jaden Roberts' measurements, because Feldman could have written any figure in there in the weight room and I would have believed him for Jaden Roberts. I mean, he is that powerful of a dude that if Feldman would have wrote, he broke the Alabama squat record by squatting 900 pounds, they would have been like, yeah, that makes sense. 600-pound bench, sure, why not? Like, it's Jaden was that type of kid early at Aquinas, and while he finished up his high school career in Texas, it was funny. We did that episode, obviously, with Randy Withers, where we drafted the top prospects that we've seen in Kansas City over our time doing this. And man, we had a discussion about Jaden Roberts. He's one of those guys that really stood out. And I think, he's done everything that we thought he would probably do. I'm glad you brought up, Avery Johnson, Lincoln Cure, Kansas kids that, should be on that list. Not sure there are a whole lot of quarterbacks in the country faster than Avery Johnson is. Lincoln Cure, how often you see tight ends that are state champions in the hurdles? Doesn't happen very often. Kansas did get one player on the list. Daniel Highshaw made the list. There were probably a few other Jayhawks that maybe could have made it, but that was the guy that I think Kansas kind of put forward or that they had for that one. Don't think a Missouri player off the top of my head was on there too. And Missouri certainly has some guys that could have made it as well.
Yeah, I mean, I love that Bruce Feldman does this list, but it's always a little. I'm always a little looking at it skeptically, only because it's like, Iowa had like 3 guys in the top 6. I mean, yeah, Iowa's got some really good linemen, like they always do, but that was, intriguing. You talk about local kids. how does Jaron Kanek not make this
Yeah.
list?
Yeah.
Like, so anyway, all that to say though, it's pretty awesome to see, 4 guys just from the Kansas City area, we're not even talking states here, just the metro, able to get in the top, 55 amongst the 4 of them.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. And again, I'll just echo it. Like, that's why we have this show. Like, that's why we are firm believers. There are plenty more guys coming, not to put you on the spot, Kevin, but like, is there a guy on the come up that might still be in high school that could one day crack this list?
I've said this before. I think Josh Galbraith is one of the most athletic linebackers in the entire country, and his recruiting ranking doesn't reflect that. And I get that and I'm not trying to throw any shade here. I'm just saying, I get that if you don't see him, if you don't know the measurements, if you're not making a trip to Lawrence, Kansas to see Josh Galbraith, that the tape, I'm not saying it's not impressive, but you don't necessarily look at the tape and see what those athletic numbers are just yet because he's still developing as a linebacker. And so I think Galbraith is a guy like that. A lot of times the freaks list guys are guys who are also just terrific at other sports. And there aren't many multi-sport guys better than Ian Premer when you look at the basketball ability and everything else. And
I might pause you there.
I can tell that you have somebody in mind, maybe a 2027 in mind.
Maybe at Premer's same school.
Yes.
I think Cooper Omott might have the kind of like traits to get him on a freaks list. I mean, when you break the bench record and you're his size and you're doing stuff in track, not just from a speed standpoint, but like the vertical, the long jump, high jump stuff that he's doing. He's both of those guys, Kevin. Great Bend is blessed with 2 tremendous athletes.
I didn't know if you were going to the Missouri side and talking about Kobe Rhymes.
Well,
with the volleyball background and the
that too
stuff there. Obviously, Kyler Kuhn, very good multi-sport guy as well. And then JJ Dunnigan has really good testing athleticism as well. I'm interested to see when he gets into a college program, sort of what those numbers are, how those things pop. But I actually think this is a pretty good class in terms of having some of those guys that really check a lot of those boxes. But when you ask me, the guy that really popped like right off the top of my head, like if you're listing, hey, 40 is this, vertical is this, etc., Josh Galbraith is kind of the guy that jumps out at me.
That's a good pick.
I want to ask you real quick, and I'm putting you on the spot.
Okay.
Freakiest guy maybe that you've covered in Kansas City.
I mean, that I've seen, because there's some guys that I just wasn't able to see that I know people are super high on. Like, I never got a chance to watch the Brown brothers live in high school.
Yep.
Never got a chance to watch Bubba Starling live in high school and do the things that he did with his frame. I mean, Jaron Kanek is probably the guy for me. Like, again, like Avery was terrific and an insane athlete, but imagine what Avery was doing, but like with more bulk. Like, he was just bigger and was still making guys miss, running guys over, running past guys. Like, he's up there, and Lincoln's probably up there too. So whether it's Jaron, Lincoln, and Avery, like that would probably be kind of in my top 3. And again, I'm kind of pigeonholing the more skill position guys, but as we saw on this list, there's plenty of linemen in other areas that I could have gone to as well.
Yeah, Bubba Starling would probably be my number one. Just what he did with that height, that frame, that size, multi-sport, all the things that he did with how fast he was. He might have been number one. Braden Smith was so freaky too at the same stage. But a guy that if you take away, because I think when you think of freaky guys, you usually think guys who have athleticism with a certain amount of size. If you take away the body part of it, I think Malik Benson and what he was able to do on the track, in terms of being that fast, having that long jump and all of those things, if you're just saying who's the best run and jump athlete that you've seen, regardless of size, it might have been Malik Benson.
Yeah. That's again not a we're pulling all sorts of names because again I think it goes that deep around here and people just haven't opened their eyes to it yet.
I hear you. Again, don't feel bad if your team's favorite guy isn't on this list. It's a tough process, in fairness to Feldman, to get guys from that many high school teams and make the list up. For us, it just makes a really fun preseason topic to chat about. Speaking of chatting, we chatted with Derby offensive lineman Max Robinson and Kalen Scarth when they were in town for a three-way scrimmage with Mill Valley and Staley. We'll have that interview right after this.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network. Make sure you download our new app. Find it on the App Store or Google Play. Just search KC Sports Network.
This is the Verbal Commitment Podcast. Derby looks like one of the most talented teams in the state of Kansas once again. Stop us if you've heard this one. And that includes the offensive tackle duo of Max Robinson, one of the top-ranked players in the state of Kansas for 2026, and Kalen Scarth, who holds similar honors for 2027. We talked with them about their recruitments, asked them to give scouting reports on each other, and even asked in a 7-on-7 setting which one would route the other one up. Check it out.
All right, here at the KC Elite 7-on-7 tournament in Mill Valley, and obviously we were just talking to these guys. You're not participating in the 7-on-7 stuff. Not to say you couldn't if you got out there if you wanted to, but not a lineman event. But you were here for a scrimmage yesterday.
Yeah.
How do you feel like the line overall at Derby is coming along this offseason, Max?
It's good. I feel like we have a lot of returners, so we have a lot of chemistry on the O-line, and I feel like all that chemistry is going to help the run game a lot with areas in the backfield. Now our QB Christian Dorsey, we're going to have a phenomenal season this season. I ain't gonna lie, we're gonna run the ball a lot this season, and we're gonna run it down team's throats. I can tell you that.
Kalen, I was going to ask you, what do you feel like? Where do you feel like this Derby team is going to be a little bit different than maybe last year's Derby team?
The option threat. We got a really good running back and a really good running quarterback. So that option is going to be really lethal. And I feel like it's going to be way different than last year.
Max, let's go to you for recruiting stuff. Are you happy with where things are at, and kind of what's the status report?
I'm happy with everything right now. Right now, I'm just kind of focused on getting stronger and faster before the season, trying to get right before the season. And I'm taking my official visits in the fall, so I can have game day visits, see what the game day environment's like, see the locker room and stuff like that. So that's my plan going through this summer and this fall, going into the fall.
Are there any schools right now that you feel like are just have been steady in terms of their contact with you?
Yeah,
you're really feeling some love.
Penn State, I love. We've been talking a lot. I've been talking to Auburn a little bit. We've been talking to KU's definitely been on my phone a lot, and K-State them really.
I remember you were talking about KU after the May South game last year, so I know that's a team that has been, again, kind of in your phone a lot, right?
They've been in my phone really this whole recruiting process, and I'm very blessed to have that opportunity and have that relationship with them throughout all these years.
What do you like about that program and what they're doing with this 26 class?
They're doing a great job on recruiting this 26 class. They've recruited a lot of guys in Kansas, great in Kansas recruitment. Took a lot of my friends I used to play ball with, so it's just like they've done great job recruiting guys and getting people in Kansas.
So your plan then, again, official visits in the fall, and then any kind of timetable on when you might want to announce, or we'll see.
We'll see. I need to talk to my mom, talk to family, and talk to some other people. But yeah, we'll see. But it will be soon.
Sure.
It will be soon.
Transferring over to you now, what are you learning from him about life as a recruit?
Really just everything, the experiences, how to talk to coaches, like what to respond to them, all that, how to reach out to them. That's really helped me a lot. And yeah, he's been like a great role model, a great help to me in my recruiting process.
What area do you feel like right now a lot of coaches are saying, man, this is a real strength of your game, and is there an area right now you're hearing from coaches saying, we'd really like to see this out of your junior season?
They really want to see me be more dominant on the ball, put people in the dirt more, so I'm ready to do that themselves. And my strength, my speed, and my agility, they said that's really good.
Is there a position that you feel like you're going to fit best at the next level? You like tackle? You want to slide inside a little bit? Or?
I like tackle, but yeah, I'll probably go inside, more interior to guard or center.
Tell us a little bit about what your summer was. I saw your K-State O-line, D-line. Were there other camps that you hit up this summer?
Yeah, I went to KU Mega Camp too. I went to OSU. I went to UR Athlete too, to Media Camp.
Okay. What schools right now do you feel like you've kind of heard from? I know things are still kind of just getting juiced up for you, but
K-State, been reaching out a lot, sending me mail. KU been talking to me. South Dakota, we've been in contact with them, and Yale a little bit. So.
Awesome. And then for you, are you a guy that would like to have your recruitment kind of done ahead of time, or could you stretch it out a little bit?
I feel like, honestly, it doesn't matter as long as they come. As long as it comes, I'll be happy with it.
Awesome.
All right, the thing for me, I'll just be fun with it. Can you give me a scouting report on Kalen?
Scout report. Hey, he's great. I ain't gonna lie, we've been working hard on like his dominance in the O-line and on the field, but his speed is great. He's very agile. He's quick with the ball. He's very smart. He can read backers. He's kind of like he's getting like me a little bit, but he got a little more room to grow. But for sure, he's good though. He's good.
And then can you give me a scouting report on Max?
Really just another version of me, really dominant. I'm faster, but he's faster.
Here we go.
All right.
Pretty strong, good defender, everything. Pass pro, great, good player all around, I feel like.
All right, and we're here at 7-on-7. Who would route up the other one if you guys were out here?
Every time at the field, I always try him.
No, that would never happen. I could play tight end right now if I really wanted to, but he would get routed up respectfully though. But I'm gonna stick at my position.
That was Max Robinson and Kalen Scarth, the talented offensive tackle pairing at Derby High School. When you have guys up front like that and a runner like Arius Finley taking advantage of the holes they're creating, you're probably going to put together a pretty strong season. So Coach Clark in another pretty envious spot, I think, heading into 2025. That should do it for this week's episode of the Verbal Commitment Podcast on KCSN. Thanks for following along. If you enjoyed what you saw or heard, leave us a comment or review, like this video, subscribe here on YouTube, or hit us with a 5-star rating if you're listening on an audio platform. And until next time, we'll see you on the trail, and take care.